In an attempt to build the most versatile, comfortable, and excellent bass possible, I commissioned this gorgeous Armitage from Serek Basses, and I frankly could not be happier. Since receiving this bass back in May, I've played it a lot. Like a lot. So what makes this such a great bass for basically anything, and how do you use just the myriad of tonal options that you've got here? I am AMP the bass player, and this is how you get the most out of a complex bass. Let's first go through the electronics. This is the exact same setup that you get out of like a G&L L2500. You've got these two big MFD humbucker pickups, which MFD stands for motherfucking destruction. As for controls, we've got volume, we've got treble, and we've got bass. And the way that these controls are set up, they are cut only. So when they're all the way up, they're considered flat. For the switches, we've got a 3-way position switch for the pickups, a 2-position switch for series and parallel, more on that later, and then another 3-position switch for passive, active, and boost. With all of that together, there's quite a lot of combinations of things, and rather than just settle into like one thing, I try and leverage as much of this as possible to switch up my tone to perfectly suit whatever song I'm playing. I play in a lot of wedding or event or cover bands, and we cover a lot of ground musically, and so having a bass like this that's mega flexible is super useful. I mean, we do everything from Motown to R&B to rock to pop and just everything in between. If it was ever popular at any point in time since the bass guitar existed, I play it, and you can do it on this bass. Let's start with the neck pickup on this, because it's inarguably my favorite part of this bass. The neck pickup just sounds so good. I definitely consider the neck pickup home bass because I'm kind of a P-bass sort of guy. So here's how that sounds in parallel and passive with everything flat. Even down on some of these lower notes on the low B, you still have plenty of definition, but sometimes it's a little bit too much zing. So I started into Use Me later on this gig, and I felt like I was getting too much treble out of there, so I just roll it off a little bit. Here's how that sounds. Next, let's do a Motown sound, because that's probably the most surprising thing you'll get out of this bass, right? It's an active bass with dual humbuckers, so getting that old school sound out of here is kind of weird, but it totally works. This is the kind of sound that I would use on songs like My Girl, or Ain't No Sunshine, or I Want You Back, right? It's that P-bass with flat wound sound. So naturally, we're gonna stick to the neck pickup. I'm gonna roll the treble all the way down, and I'm gonna pluck closer to the neck than the bridge, to kind of give it a fatter, warmer sound as much as I can, because I do have round wound strings on this. Now, fair warning, this tone all by itself in isolation doesn't sound great, but in a mix, it totally works and it sounds fantastic.
You'll be hearing from him a lot.
Part of what's helping me get that old school tube amp vibe is a pedal that I've got. It's the VT bass. And what I found is that parallel and series mode play really differently with it. So when I'm in parallel mode, you get a little bit more low end, a little bit more output, and what that does is that overdrives the pedal, and so it kind of gives me that vintage vibe. But when I want something different, like a hi-fi sort of clean sound, flick it into series mode, and it cleans up, and it's great for things like slap. Or if I want, I can grab a pick and then it does the pop punk thing flawlessly with no changes to any of my pedals or anything. Just a flick of the switch. Now, of course, so far we've only spent time on the neck pickup because I just love it. In fact, Serek made a couple of copycats of this bass, but he only did the neck pickup, and I think that that was a good move because that's the strongest part of this bass, in my opinion.
I have to give credit to Andrew Pincock, Amp the Bass Player on YouTube. He had us build him a 5-string Armitage in the style of a G&L L2500 bass, and I bought a couple extra sets of preamps and pickups because I like them so much.
But of course, if you have it, you might as well use it. And so there's plenty of justifications for the kind of jazz bass sound on songs like Sir Duke or September. So here's what that sounds like, still in parallel mode, still in passive, but with both pickups on. So we're still hearing that sort of vintage vibe, but with the jazz bass pickups. Here's what that sounds like when we switch to series mode, and I want to do something that's a little more hi-fi and clean and modern sounding. And of course, as you might expect, this is a great slap sound too. Interesting thing I found about series versus parallel is that the treble knob behaves differently in either mode. When you're in parallel mode, you get a warmer, more vintagey sound, you roll that off and you transport right back to the 60s. But when you're in series mode and you roll the treble off, it retains a lot of the clarity and the definition, but you just kind of round off the hard edges. It almost gives you like a Thunderbird sort of a sound, which I find really interesting. Now, I don't have a clip of me using this live, so I'll just demonstrate it here. So we'll roll the treble all the way off. We're in parallel mode with both pickups, still in passive mode, and this is what it sounds like. Switch to series. So that just leaves us with the bridge pickup, and if you're like most people, you probably don't use the bridge pickup all by itself. I am not most people. Here's a clip of me playing the chicken with just the bridge pickup, the treble rolled all the way off to kind of get that Jocko-y vibe.
Back upstairs, see what's going on
Now, a lot of bridge pickups kind of sound thin by themselves, but you gotta love how much beef is on this thing. Like, it just sounds great. I do still use the bridge pickup in series mode by itself. I like to use it with a little bit of chorus to kind of get an 80s vibe, so here's how that sounds. With one last thing that I have not talked about at all, and that is active mode. and for the most part, I do not use this live. It's just too much of a hassle with all of the other switching that I'm doing that just for the sake of simplicity, I just leave it in passive mode all the time when I'm playing live. The main reason for that is because when you switch it into active mode, you get even more output, which is not a problem for this bass at all. It has plenty of output in passive mode, but I do end up using the active modes and even the treble boost for some of the recordings that I've done. Active mode works great to give me a lot of clean headroom, and it works really, really great with distortion because you're not amplifying any of the noise. And the treble boost works really, really great when you're in a metal context, gives you a lot of clank and top end. Here's how that sounds. Another project that I've used this bass pretty extensively on is an album that I'm working on for a rock opera that I've been performing in for about 10 years now. Out of the 23 tracks on that album, I used the Armitage on 17 of them in various configurations. If you happen to be in Utah or Idaho later this month, you can come see the show live. I'll put the dates here. But for the rest of you, I'll just give you a little sneak preview until the album comes out, hopefully next spring. So there you have it. This is the Do Everything Serek Armitage, and I've been very happy with this bass overall. I'm really looking forward to putting even more wear and tear on this bass. Like, this thing is not a case queen. This is a working player's bass. On a somewhat related note, I've had some people express some interest in a similar kind of video to this, but just for my pedal board, like how I'm using all of my effects and everything. So let me know down in the comments if that's something you'd like to see, a how do I use my pedals video. If you just haven't had enough of this bass and you'd like to hear more, please do check out this video. I made it a while ago and it's a lot more tone samples and a lot less talking. But for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. And P out!